Welcome back. Well, the FDA will weigh a major shift in its COVID-19 vaccine strategy this Thursday. For tonight's Unfiltered, I spoke with Wish TV medical expert and former Surgeon General Dr. Jerome Adams. He says recommendations have been long overdue and that the change could increase vaccine compliance. Well, Doc, good to see you. So some good news coming out in your opinion, because I know you've been a proponent of this for quite some time, and the FDA meeting on Thursday to discuss this, right? And I would imagine that this is happy news for you.
Well, it is good news because we're long overdue for some sensible recommendations from the FDA. One of the real challenges, Phil, is that only about 15% of Americans have received the new bivalent booster, despite most people across the nation being eligible for it. And even when you look at that vulnerable 65 and older age group, only about 40% of them have received the booster. There's actually been studies that trace back the reasons for this to confusion in the guidance. So if we can make this like the flu shot so that people understand every year at around the same time we get the flu shot, we need to get our COVID update, I think you'll have higher compliance, and I think people will be better for it.
Okay, so what has to happen for this to become a reality?
Well, the FDA put out documents today, as you mentioned, ahead of their meeting, which is coming up later this week, to the advisory committee. The advisory committee will either give it the thumbs up or thumbs down or make some additional recommendations. And then once the FDA finally decides what they want to do, then the CDC will also have to look at it and make recommendations. And I expect that this will move forward because the country wants it and needs it. And also the FDA and the CDC are frustrated themselves. And my sources are telling me from constantly being beat up for, hey, now it's time for another booster, or hey, you need to get this, or you need to get that. No, everyone wants this to make sense and for it to be on a regular schedule.
I know that you mentioned it in the onset that hopefully this will maybe push more people to get the shot, right? I mean, that's kind of the thought process behind this. The reality of that happening, though, Doc?
Well, I do think it's not going to be a panacea. It's not going to be magic. You aren't going to go from 15% to 90% of people now being up to date on their vaccines. But particularly for that older age group, people who are 65 plus, high risk, if we can make it simpler for them, then I think they will get it, because that age group actually has a high compliance rate for the flu vaccine because they know, their doctors know, their family knows, hey, grandma, hey, grandpa, it's time to get your flu shot. So I really do think it could have a big difference, particularly for those at highest risk.
I know there's a new strain right now that's circulating. The latest on that?
Well, we know that the new XBB variant, which is an Omicron variant, has become predominant in the United States. The flip side of that, as you and I have discussed previously, is that we've seen overall activity for COVID, for flu, for RSV, reach a peak and start to come back down. It could go back up again, which is why it's important for people to remember, if you haven't gotten your COVID vaccine yet or your flu vaccine, it's not too late because we've got new variants out there. We could see another peak, and we've got the tools. We just have to make sure we're putting people in the best possible position to utilize those tools.
Yeah, I can't underscore that enough, as you and I talked about last week. Dr. Adams, always good to see you. Thanks for joining the show tonight. We appreciate you taking some time. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.